Hey, good morning to everybody. Happy Wednesday. It's Daryl here. It is bright and freaking early, man. You know it is 3:30 a.m. here in Connecticut on the East Coast. Okay, I think this is going to be a good video. This is interesting, especially if you're my age. There's a little nostalgia in this video. I'm going to talk about one of the stupidest, most dangerous things I did. It's still early in the video. It's less than 30 seconds, so I'm going to say one of the stupidest, most dangerous things I did at 420. I'll say that. I don't know how I'm going to title this video. I don't know if I'm going to use the term 420 or the actual term. I'll figure that out after I record the video. Okay, and the reason this all came up, I saw a bunch of articles this morning about Republicans putting kids to work in meatpacking plants and metal foundries, all sorts of ridiculously dangerous jobs, 30 hours a week. Working till 9 during the weekdays and 11 o'clock at night. And the Republicans took this vote in Iowa. They took this vote at, I think it was 4:52 in the morning, and none of them will talk about it. And so I'm looking at this, right? And I'm asking myself, okay, so these same people are terrified that a 14-year-old, that a parent would bring like a 14-year-old to a show, a trans show. And that 14-year-old would tip a trans person, a trans worker. Okay, but that same parent would be perfectly fine with letting their teen go to work in a meat packing plant for 30 hours a week, working until 9, 10 o'clock at night. No, 9 o'clock in the weekdays. I don't know what Republicans are thinking. Honestly, there'll be a lot of links down below to this whole thing about child labor. Republicans if you don't know, Republicans are bringing back child labor. They're turning back laws that were put into place in the 1930s. I'm not exaggerating on this, and it's not just in Iowa. There's actually a few laws in Maine. This involves, I think, restaurants. And New Jersey and a lot of other states, mostly Republican states. I was surprised with Maine and New Jersey. Dangerous jobs. So I started thinking this morning. You know my thing with empathy. I started thinking. I started working on a paper route, and I want to talk a little bit about that. And I got a job in a plastics plant, a plastics factory. And I was trying to think, what did something date anything date? I started working there when I was 16, which is considerably older. When you're a teen, those 2 years make quite a difference. But I believe this happened when I was 17 years old. And I thought back to something dangerous that might have happened when I was a teen working in a factory. And I remembered something I broke my arm. If you look at this arm, it's twisted. I broke it completely in half. When I got up off the ground, it was bent here in the middle. All right, so I thought of that. And I was like, okay, that's a perfect example. Now here's where 420 comes in. Then I remembered what was involved. It was during break time. All right, I'll start right there. I was working. Initially, I worked on a paper route. I remember at the time, I wanted so badly to have a paper route. When I used to live out in the woods at the state park, there was no paper routes. And once I moved to the bad side of the tracks when my mom bought a house, there was lots of paper routes. And I was so excited to get a paper route and get my own money coming in. And there's no paper routes today. Kids don't have this opportunity. And I started thinking about that. Just the way that things have evolved, there's no more paper routes. That was a great way to make money. I think I ended up combining at least 4 paper routes. I think it was 2 or 3 Sunday routes and at least 2 large weekly routes. So it was about 5 routes altogether. And that was a great experience for me. If you never were involved, if you never had a kid that did paper routes or you never did paper routes yourself, I was thinking about that. Anybody that had a kid working paper routes would have to be pretty old right now because there's no more paper routes. But it involved a lot of stuff. There was the delivering of the papers. Then I had to collect the money, and I had to put. The first thing I had to do, I just had a pile of money that I would collect, and then there was always the people that I had to come back to. I had to learn how to collect money from people. That was one of the hardest things. People avoiding me, people giving me excuses and stuff like that at 14, 15, or 16 years old. It teaches you a lot about how to deal with people. on a business sense. It was a great experience. It really was a fantastic experience, and it's no more. It's ancient. It's gone. It doesn't exist anymore, I don't think. Now I think they just basically, if anybody's delivering papers, it's adults in cars. But then, like I said, it also taught me, I took that money and then I would have to make my bills out. I'd have an envelope and I'd have to put the money into each envelope that I owed the company, first of all, and what was ever left over was my profit. I still remember this. One of my friends, he had a paper route for only a week or two, and he was lazy and he was smoking pot and stuff, and he quit after a week or two. And every time I saw him, he would try to lecture me. He'd say, that's such a ripoff. He'd tell me, he'd say, if that paper company had to pay you an hourly rate, they'd go out of business. And I started thinking about that, and I started adding it up, and I was making, like, at that time, the minimum wage was $3.32, I think. I was probably making, if you added the hours that I worked, and I probably made about $80 a week from the 3 paper routes at least. I think I made up to $120 during the Christmas vacation, Christmas times and everything. It was about 3 times the minimum wage that I was making. If you divided up the hours that I worked, all the hours, putting the money aside and everything, not just the delivery. It was good money. It was really good money. Okay, then I got a job at a plastics factory. I was 16 years old. I wanted to pay for my car insurance and all that stuff. And I believe I was 17 years old when this happened. My friend had come, it was during the summer, my friend was working with me. And we were on break. And we smoked pot. I started smoking pot, I told you guys, the first time when I was 14. And like I said, I was about 17, and it was break time. We went out behind the factory where the loading docks were. And the factory was still, it was about 7 o'clock at night. We were working the night shift, the after supper shift. And there was still a large amount of people in the factory, but we went out to the back and we climbed up on this. It was like a water tower, because when we were young and smoking pot, we always tried to climb up stuff, trees, buildings. I don't know, to find a place with a good view. I don't know if kids or people still do that today. So we were up there and we were smoking. We finished a joint. And we went back. We were going back. And instead of going all the way down the ladder, there was a way to take a shortcut. There was a ledge that was about 12 feet off the cement ground outside by the loading docks. And there was a ledge about 12 feet up. The ledge was about this wide. And then there was a metal wall in front of it. So there was a metal wall, a little like 7-inch ledge, and then the cement wall going down to the ground. And we got this brilliant idea because we had just finished smoking a joint, and we were wondering if we could make it along that wall. And it was a good, probably about 15 feet. We go around one corner, about 5 feet, turn the corner and go about 15 feet and go into the loading dock. And it was about 12 feet up from the cement. And it seemed like a great idea. It never occurred to us what would happen if we started to lose our balance and fall away from the wall, because the ledge is only this wide. And that's what happened. My friend made it. I was about 6 feet away from the end of the wall to go around the corner and go into the loading dock. And all of a sudden, I just started falling backwards. And it was 12 feet down onto cement. I spun. I tried to grab the end of the wall, which I missed. And I slid down the wall with my left side going down first. And this arm hit the cement first, trying to catch myself. And it completely snapped this arm, both bones. It broke this arm completely in half. And these two parts of the bones went on top of these two. So my arm bent right here in the middle. I got up off the ground and I go into shock immediately. The bones didn't come through the skin, surprisingly. It was about this thick right here. And it bent down, and my arm was about this much shorter. It did not look good at 17 years old and stoned. My friend, I'll never forget this. My friend says to me, "Definite bone damage, dude." So I swear to God, I wanted to kill him. So they took me to the hospital. I'll never forget this. They straightened it. They pulled on my fingers and straightened it. And the doctor told me, you're going to have problems your whole life. I can't bend it further than this. I can't bend it farther back than this. You can see how messed up it is. Yeah, it's actually pushed back here. And I haven't let it bother me my whole life. The doctor told me that, I'd have arthritis, I'd be crippled. And then he winked at me and he said, you could get a lot of money for this. And I was too stupid. As a teenager, I didn't even tell my mom that he said that. And looking back, I could have gotten a lot of money. About a week or two after this happened, they put chains around the whole loading dock so nobody could go out on that ledge. Looking back, man, I could probably still have money from that. Anyway, so this morning I was thinking about talking about that. One of the most dangerous things that happened to me when I was working in the factory. Then boom, it occurs to me, I can't tell, this isn't gonna work. I was getting high. But then I thought about it and it's like, no, this is a perfect example. And I started looking up how many teenagers are smoking pot right now. To think that these kids are gonna work in Iowa, and 1 in 7, anywhere between 1 in 4 to 1 in 7. The links will be down below. It's sketchy, but 1 in 4 to 1 in 7 kids, 22% to about 13 or 14%, something like that, have smoked in the last month. And I started thinking about that. To think that these kids that are going to go to work in Iowa, 14, 15, 16, whatever, to think that they're not smoking pot is silly, I forgot the word I was looking for, is ridiculous. There's going to be kids that, and they're going to go on their break and they're going to smoke pot, which is going to make, they have poor, at that age, you don't have good decision making, you're not good. I'll have the links down below to this too, about how marijuana affects your brain and kids' brains at that age. And you don't make good, like I said, at that age, it never occurred to me what would happen, what was likely to happen, that I'd fall away. And it wasn't just because I was stoned. It's just, at that age, you think you're going to live forever. You don't picture, and if I didn't swing for the end of that wall at the last moment, I would have hit that cement from 12 feet up on my back or on my head. And I'd either be paralyzed or dead. So it was just pure luck that I tried to grab the end of the wall. And I'm still alive today with a bent arm. You don't think that you're going to die. You don't make good decisions at that age. I can't believe Republicans, on one hand, they're talking about the, life, how every life is so important, and then the whole trans things about, these kids, they're grooming these kids. And on the other hand, they're perfectly happy to put them in a factory at 14 years old. And I want to say this too, this wasn't brought up in any of the articles, but the reason I think they're doing this, Republicans want to do this, isn't just to get kids, because there's a lot of big corporations involved in this, from the Koch brothers down to Burger King. The links will be down below. There's a good YouTube video down below too. I think it's about cutting food stamps and Medicaid and all that stuff. I think because that the 14-year-old's income, 50-year-old's income is going to go towards the family's income, and it's going to be an opportunity for the $100 that 14-year-old makes. They're going to cut $100 of food stamps out of the family's. It's just another reason to cut assistance to people in poverty, especially minorities. Those are my thoughts on that. And one reason why smoking marijuana didn't work out well for me. I'll have some more stories on that too, how I got held up at knife point trying to buy weed in New York City. True story. That'll be up next. You guys have a good Wednesday.